everyone, Mary will be here with another video, and today we're here for something... Oh boy. The 10-year anniversary Skybound X Clementine comic issue 1. I made videos talking about my thoughts on the news and the information we knew, and today I'll tell you what I make of it. Before we begin, as always, if you're already a subscriber, I ask that you leave a like right now, and if you're not, you could wait until the end of the video to judge if I deserve it or not. And also, if you haven't read the comic yet, major spoilers ahead. If you want to read it, do it. Buy it online, support the official release, then come back when you're done. Also, I'm not gonna be showing that many images from the comic, aside of the 2 first pages, not to run the risk of copyright strikes and whatevers. Anyway, to the video now. So yeah, the Clementine comic released in Skybound X #1. Yay? I'm gonna be straight here and tell this is definitely going to be one of the hardest videos I've ever made. Not because of the work, but the emotion which is attached to the story and characters. I made those 2 comic videos before making this, with what we knew at the time. Who was going to write it, when it was going to release, the first 2 pages, and a few theories about it. However, something happened in the meantime of these videos, and I didn't comment on it. When they announced this comic book, I was skeptical. But then, when they announced a Clementine graphic novel trilogy a week before the release of the comic, I became worried. And now that I've read the comic issue, my hopes for this are just thin as air. Now, let's take a little dive and talk about The Walking Dead, the whole franchise, to try understanding better what's going on. This tactic of frustrating the audience is something that The Walking Dead as a whole, comics, TV series, and games, are professionals at by this point. It is The Walking Dead's specialty, crashing big expectations with cheap twists, killing off characters at random without that much of a ceremony, and retconning the previous story only in favor of a new perspective on things, the last example being applied specifically to the Telltale games. You might ask why this happens? Well, it was an inherent characteristic to the comics when Robert Kirkman wrote them. The unpredictability of the narrative would level up the stakes of the story, and yeah, it certainly does. But that also comes with the cost of many scenes not having the weight they should have. All 4 seasons of the games do have continuity between each other, but they mostly favor the new things of each installment instead of incorporating the old ones to the new ones. This happens between Season 2 and A New Frontier, where you practically disregard the Season 2 endings, and Clem and AJ are the only things that hold up from the previous game. And this also applies to Season 3 and Season 4 again. Clem and AJ are the only things to carry over from one game to another. Javi and Richmond are nowhere to be seen in the game, aside of a few mentions. I still think the best continuity in this series is from Season 1 and Season 2, but anyway, that's just a detail. So yeah, surprise surprise, this ultimately happens here with the continuity from Season 4 in the comic. We have a time gap, we can see or hear about any of the boarding school kids, because otherwise it will conflict with our choices from the previous game. Thus, we set Clem and AJ on their journey and... Okay, what's going on? Oh no. Before I say what I have to say, I have to explain something to you. This comic is not a self-contained story. It doesn't have a middle, a beginning, and an end. This here is merely a prologue to the graphic novel trilogy that I mentioned earlier, an attempt to allure the readers to buy the first book by creating hype for it. Okay, fair, but when does the first book release? A few months from now? No? So when then? On freaking June 2022. What? This means we have to wait a whole year to know why exactly in heaven did Clementine simply leave AJ and say that he can't make her happy? Really? After everything we've been through years in these games, the relationship between these 2 grew to become something as powerful as Clementine and Lee's bond in the first game. Simply discard it for the sake of a new story? Now, I'm definitely not the only one out here on YouTube by now talking about this comic at the moment, but I'm just gonna say it. Unless Tilly Walden has a massive and ingenious trick up her sleeve to explain why Clementine did what she did, then this is just absolutely bad. Me as a fan of the games and the story, in a first impression, I don't care if the art is somewhat good, which in the case really isn't the most marvelous thing honestly, and I don't care if any of the new characters, including this Amos? Amos guy? I don't care if he's anything good. If they're literally trashing AJ, the boarding school, and even Clementine without a good reason, then this here is just bad writing. Straight up. Simple as that. I'm sorry. By reading what I read here, I firmly believe that Clem's motivation to leave is gonna have something to do with traumatizing events in the complex psychological configuration of Clementine's mind. Therefore, the depression card, which can oftenly be used to justify stupid character assassination in favor of a much larger narrative. Now I know it's hard to talk about depression so generally like this when it is something really subtle and abysmally overtaking for a person, but when talking about storytelling, this is a strategy it is used quite a lot, and it does not favor the characters they bring applied to, nor represent people with real depression that well, I might add. Now let's look at Clementine for a second. She was 8 when all of this started. She witnessed the deaths of dozens of people she grew attached to in these 8 years that the game series take place. Just to mention the losses I found the most traumatic for her: Doc, her parents, Lee, Omid, Luke, the final choice in season 2 with either Kenny or Jane, the flashbacks, and AJ's kidnapping in Any Frontier, and also the deaths of either Lewis, Violet, or Ten. Yes, all of this is traumatic, and yes, she had her childhood and most part of her identity stolen away from her because she needed to survive the apocalyptic world of the walkers. She passed half of her life trying to survive, trying to run away from her past, trying to redeem herself, and ultimately she took the selfless mission to take care of a baby and find a place that both of them could call home. Yes, Clementine had her childhood taken away from her. Yes, she witnessed the most tragic events out there, and yes, it would be nice to start getting to know who she is, but wasn't that the whole purpose of the final season? Finding a place she and AJ could call home and experience normality besides a life of pure survival, befriending other kids like her, even finding love for someone special. She doesn't need to leave everything behind and say such horrible things directly to AJ. That's the whole essence of the final season, to put a stop to Clem's suffering and make everything that she suffered be somehow meaningful in the end of it all, as she can start to give AJ and herself a normal life. That's why the writers for the final season were right to make her survive in the end. She's so happy in the last scene, almost as if she looked behind all the suffering and sorrow and finally felt free to let them all go, as she could start to live her own life. That's the magic of the final season in my opinion, and that's why I said in a past Clementine comic book video that making her live in the end was the best choice they could have made to end the series with. Now, to look at it all and see what they did to this comic, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I could be ranting a lot more about this here. However, the thing is, we'll have to wait a year practically to see how this will fully turn out to be, because unfortunately we can only say fairly something is good or bad by consuming it and experiencing it. So yeah, we're stuck here.
What will you do?
Wait.
So yeah guys, this was it. I made this video talking my opinions on what I've read in a really general way, not getting into many details for the video not to be that long, because after I read this, I really didn't feel it was worth that much of my trouble, honestly. This comic is getting quite a lot of hate from the fan base. It's actually quite understandable, but please do not harass Tilly or any other person involved with the comic online. That's just a dick move, and I know that you can be better than that. If you're wondering, I probably won't make other videos talking about the comic, not even news, not even theories. I'll most likely wait until next year to talk about the graphic novel itself when it releases. I honestly don't even know if my channel will be active until then, but yeah, we'll see this in the future. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the support you guys have been giving in my videos. It's been practically a year since I started making these videos only for fun, and I appreciate you who commented, liked, and also subscribed to the channel. I'm really happy for it. I made the season 2 and season 3 rewrite series, my top 5 episodes video, those two CLEM comic news commentary, and I'd like to thank you all, especially for my Carver video, which in nearly a month in the air made over 2K views. That's a lot if compared to any of my other videos. With all of that said, stay safe everyone. Don't worry, my Michonne video is gonna get out eventually. See you when I see you. Bye bye.
This is gonna suck.